They say love is blind. He says I was blinded when I loved. But what does he do? Here he loved and it happened. Here he sits every day in his room to write again. I am Khaled Hosni, 28 years old. A graduate of the Cairo University of Commerce for 6 years. My village is called the Bho Fryk. Today my marriage was rejected by my lover for the 8th time, and for the same reason. Then he looked at the wall, and he hung the paper next to 7 other papers, which appeared to have been suspended at earlier times. The first paper was written with his name, age, and country on it. My marriage was rejected by my sweetheart today. Next to it is a second paper with it, he was rejected for the 2nd time. As for the 3rd paper written on it has been rejected for the 3rd time. And so on until the 7th paper. After that he restored his back and looked up, and his memories returned to him 6 years ago, when he was studying in the last year at the university. And it was destiny to meet Mona, the daughter of his town, by chance, on their way from the town to his university in Cairo. And his joy increased when he learned she is studying in the same college in her 1st year at the university. And from that day, their meetings coincided a lot, with or without intent, until he woke up from his memories and exhaled a strong exhale when he looked at a large sheet of paper which he hung it on the wall under the 8 papers. It was written on it, I was rejected for the same reason, Mona's father is crazy. Khaled, if he heard the word crazy, always remembered Mona's father. I do not think that he is only Khaled, but all the people of the town. But he more than knew his madness, since he finished his studies and determined to apply to marry Mona until he was surprised on the first visit to her engagement. He looks at him strangely and asks him, "You want to marry Mona?" "Yes." Then he asked him again, "And what did you do in your life?" Khaled's face grew red, and he was troubled as if he had not expected to ask him, until he replied, "What did I do in my life? The truth is, I am a graduate of the Faculty of Commerce, University of Cairo. And you know that my father passed away, and I was young and lived with my grandfather. Currently, I am looking for a suitable job." So, he interrupted him while he was speaking, "And what did you different from others to marry my daughter?" Then he ended the interview with rejection. Khaled believed at the time that the reason for his refusal for the first time was that he did not find the appropriate job, but he confirmed that the reason may have been completely different when he found a job and went to Mona's sermon again, until he was rejected for the 2nd time. And the same question of the father. And in what differs from others? This question, which he did not find a complete answer until the 8th time for his request to marry, and did not take into consideration each time Khaled's love for his daughter or the love of his daughter to him, until he filled with enough that time and shouted at him, "I did not do anything in my life. What should I do? I know you fought in 1973. Do you see this is a reason to humiliate us? Do you want to marry your daughter to a hero? Tell me how to become a hero. I go to fight in Iraq until you agree." Then he looked at him, and anger appeared in his eyes. "I will marry Mona and I will never leave her, even if it takes you not to agree to our marriage. I will marry her." The whole town knows the weirdness of this man. He wants his only daughter to be associated with a unique person. What is this unique? No one knows. Everyone knows that the fate of his daughter is spinster only and nothing else, but as long as her father is that man. However, surrender has not touched Khaled's heart. and he has nothing in mind except this thing that makes him unique in his kind, and makes him worthy of Mona as he wants her father. But what is it? He does not know, and he found nothing but to pray to God to take her father. Although Khalid was characterized by the lightness of shadow and the cheerful soul, his love for Mona and her father's permanent rejection of him made sadness a permanent scarf on his face, until his grandfather noticed, who was approaching his 80th year, and had lived together since the death of Khalid's parents, his sadness after refusing that time, approached him and asked him, "Are you still upset? You are supposed to be used to salutation." Khalid said, "I do not imagine that I will see her with another person." "I don't know what her father want," Grandpa said, "and you will sit beside me, so keep your hands on your cheek." "What should I do?" Grandpa laughed jokingly. "No, you better bury yourself in a basement." Khalid's eyes shined, as if he remembered something. "The basement? And complete? Grandpa, do you remember when I was little and when I was telling me about the story of the basement? Remember when you weren't like you?" His grandfather replied with a smile, "Yes." Khalid laughed. "Tell me about the basement and how you entered it." His grandfather kept silent, recalling, "My God, days have passed. We were 4 guys who love adventure. We heard many words about a treasure in a crypt that passes under our country. And the basement was a great store for the rich in times of war. Everyone knew that the basement actually existed. But no one tried to enter it because it was inhabited by imps, and that whoever will enter it will not come out of it. But we gave this hadith behind us and we said we must enter the basement. We knew that the door of the basement is located in an abandoned house, in the town, and that there is a big rock blocking the door. And on a night we relied on God. We went to this house in secret, and we were able to move the rock and started to come down one by one, and with each of us a searchlight. After we went down a long ladder, we found ourselves in a tunnel. We walked a few steps through this tunnel, so we couldn't take our breath. Suddenly, all the lights went out immediately. One of us shouted, 'Imp,' and then we went back, and we got out quickly. Since then, no one has thought that he will go there again." Khalid laughed. "But it's an adventure that will give you a sweet memory. It is enough that you are not afraid to enter." Even then his grandfather told him not to tell anyone about this story. After that, Khalid returned to his room. He tried to sleep but could not. He thinks a lot about what his grandfather told him. He knows that what he heard seems legend, but the basement already exists, and his grandpa never lying. Then he suddenly looked at the paper written about why Mona's father had refused their marriage. And be surprised. Continue to the next chapter.